There is but one God and his shadow. Blessed be the curse. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. All that religious jazz and then some can be found in Consecration, written and directed by Christopher Smith, who did Creep, Triangle, Black Death, Severance, as well as The Banishing, and was written by Laurie Cook in their feature credit, and also helped produce The Banishing. And it stars Jenna Malone as Grace. Jenna Malone was not in The Banishing. She was in The Ruins back in 2008. She was quite good in that, has had some good roles since, most recently in Swallowed, where she was able to dive into some gross body horror stuff. Swallowed is really worth checking out. And Jenna Malone diving more back into horror, but she's great in other roles as well. And I was excited to see this because I like Jenna Malone. Liked her for a number of years. This also stars Danny Hutton, who plays Father Romero. Not Father Ricky Romero. No, no, no. We're not going that far back into wrestling history. And you have to be a deep-cut wrestling fan and know your wrestling history to know who the fuck Ricky Romero is. But Danny Hutton, lengthy IMDb page. Check it out. And also Janet Sussman, who plays Mother Genetically Superior. Wait, let's not go that route. Mother Superior. And this is Janet's first feature-length role not on television in about a decade. And this takes place at a remote Scottish convent where Grace, played by Jenna Malone, lost her brother. He was a priest. He seemingly took his own life, and she is distraught even though she was distant from her brother. He was religious. She really wasn't. And we find out more why in a little bit as time goes on. But she is distraught by the death of her brother. And, well, let's just say after seeing her brother's body and after visiting the convent and a few other things, she has strange visions. She's passing out. Strange stuff's going on. She's traumatized and isn't dealing with the grief all that well. And is she really seeing this stuff? Is it all in her head? Is she happy? Is she feeling bad? She's got sunshine in a bag. Is she useless? Not for long, because the grace of someone is coming strong. So, as she tries to investigate what actually happened to her brother, it turns out there's a lot more to this mystery and she needs to solve it before she's history. Grace Tales, woohoo. Okay, so the poster kind of intrigued me because there was a cross with a bloody snake around it and some nuns with sheets over their faces. And I'm like, okay, creepy religious horror. That's all right. We've had our, variations of that recently, like Pray for the Devil, which was not good. Not good at all. But Jenna Malone's in this, Danny Hutton, people I mentioned, and set at a remote Scottish convent. It actually could be something quite good, right? Unfortunately, no. No, this movie actually kind of turns out to be pretty goddamn dog shit, and it unfortunately just gets more dog shit as time goes on. While this isn't the worst story that I've seen, the movie tries to go fold back in on itself and kind of go up its own goddamn ass. To the point that while I thought the movie had a neat little idea, the way it explored it was goddamn shitty. It was a waste of Jenna Malone's talent, definitely a waste of Danny Hutton, and just ended up making its characters look like pretty goddamn big idiots. Also, even though the story is simplistic, it's also fucking incomprehensible at times because stuff just occurs and then they try to wrap it up at the end and you're like, oh, I get it. I don't care if I get it actually because I'm just glad that the movie's over. That's how I felt. Now, the scenery is pretty and the setup is okay. The opening sequence before we get to the credits is fine. And then the movie just kind of goes along. We get flashbacks, we get explanations, sort of. And it turns out that it's a pretty obvious conclusion to the point where we're like, okay, we assume that much. And the movie, again, tries to be something epic and great and everything. And, oh, you need to not turn your back on God. You need to accept God into your life. You need to be this. You need to live a life of purity. Or otherwise you could end up really fucked up and everything. Or you could end up corrupted by the love of God and everything. This movie really is all over the goddamn place. Characters will do this, characters are over here, characters are suddenly back, and these visions end up basically not even playing on our sense of like what's real, what's not. It more just plays like you can only do so many false scares and so much false bullshit before it just becomes mind-numbingly lacking in any nuance or anything good. And the violence isn't even that good. Jenna Malone is totally wasted here. And I have a feeling that a lot of people involved in this movie were wasted because I really think that the only way you could have made a movie this bad and this ridiculous was to have sustained several major head injuries. While a neat little idea, the execution is absolutely terrible, and the conclusion just made me laugh. And I mean, I'm sorry, but just the way it tries to explain itself just made me laugh more than anything, which I don't think was the original intention. It's definitely not scary. It's not scary at all. It could have gone completely bonkers and just gone that route, and it probably should have. It tried to be more serious, and unfortunately, with the subject matter and with the fact it treads very familiar ground, really can't recommend this. It's going to be on Shudder at some point, may already be on Shudder by the time you watch this review, if it's a couple weeks after. It is available currently on Amazon for a few bucks as well if you don't have a Shudder account. Shudder, however, is a great account. No, I'm not sponsored, wouldn't mind being sponsored, but I'll plug it because I like horror movies. But I didn't like Consecration. Consecration, it really should have just been, put in a goddamn concrete crypt, as it were, sealed up and never spoken of again. Sadly, more movies like this will be made, and they certainly have been made worse than Consecration, but it took its neat little idea and a couple of good cast members and wasted it totally. I'm going to get into spoilers now, just so you know. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. Okay, so it turns out that Grace and her brother, Grace was actually adopted by the man that she had called her father. Her father had passed away in a violent storm. Seemingly, she prayed to not have her dad taken away, and her dad came back. Unfortunately, her dad wasn't exactly her dad. Oh my God, this evil force has overtaken her dad. How terrible. The mother's dead, and the dad is possessed by this evil force, and the kids are locked in cages for some goddamn weird reason because the dad's really goddamn evil. Also, Father Romero, Mother Superior, and others, basically, they are trying to find this ancient relic that the brother knew about, that Grace's brother knew about. And how in the world did he know about this? Apparently, he was just able to see it through God and also see it through a picture book. It looked like they were going to hint at the possible Holy Grail because there was a cup. There was a cup in one of the pictures, and him and his sister also used to write in their own coded language, because why the hell not? And he wrote the entire book in code, and she was able to translate and able to remember all this crazy stuff. And then it turned out that Grace actually is this ancient darkness, this ancient evil that needs to be contained, going all the way back to medieval times, where people can't stop her. They can only hope to contain her, and if they contain her in the script, she won't age. But then she's been out seemingly somehow and had her memory wiped clean, or wiped her own memory clean, and has been helping people, being an eye doctor and trying to use her power for good. And then she shows up at this convent. These people treat her badly, except for this one cop, DCI Harris. I don't know what the hell DCI means in Scotland. Answers in the comments, please. I assume some kind of a police chief or police officer. And she ends up murdering a bunch of nuns that are part of this convent. Mother Superior's locked in jail for a while, seemingly. This DCI Harris guy can't make any charges stick. Father Romero ends up sealing Grace in a crypt, and then she releases herself and just goes absolutely insane. That was your idea? What happened to forgiveness? And she goes nuts. Has thrown a cross through Father Romero's, there's one of the cross pole things, and threw it right through his goddamn chest. And then she kills a whole bunch of people. And then she's going to do this one thing where after talking to Father Romero a while ago, he talked about how people would step back through this hole in the wall where the men can see it all, because the rest of this church that has since been flattened, even though it had holy stones in it, the Knights of the Morning Star, they, after their crusades, would step back, and for each sin they would take a step, and then they would fall to their death because they committed lots of sins. And then Grace decides that's the only way. I'm screwed up in the head and I need to take care of this, and then she falls to her death. Except she doesn't die. She's back, seemingly just fine, because she's this ancient darkness and whatever. And also this woman that had this blindness, she healed her earlier in the movie. That, when she had this patient she sent to one of her friends that she's suddenly having dinner with. And the movie is an incomprehensible mess. That's the best I can describe the plot, and yeah, it's all over the goddamn place, and that's the thing. This movie is all over the place while having a simplistic viewpoint, simplistic path. And it kind of reminded me of Triangle in the sense that it kept going back in on, folding back in on its own ass. And I hate to say it, but despite Jenna Malone, Danny Hutton, and Jan Sosman, this gets an F because this is terrible. This is absolutely terrible. One of the worst films I've seen this year, and it took a decent idea that has been done in some form or another before and executed it. Put its hands behind its back and put a bag over his head and shot it right in the goddamn head in front of God and everybody. Yeah, Consecration gets a damn F. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.